Gold is literally created from the explosion of stars, like actual supernovas. Now imagine waking up with that in your hoodie every night. Yeah, that's how this story starts. Welcome to my gold story. Kendrick Johnson didn't look like the type of man you'd expect to find trimming hedges in a gated community full of Bentleys and trust funds. His skin glistened in the sun, deep brown and dusted with sweat. His uniform? A faded red t-shirt that clung to his back, frayed jeans with one knee torn open, and steel-toe boots held together by willpower and duct tape. He didn't complain. Didn't have time to. His beat-up push mower rattled and coughed through the manicured lawn of the Astor estate, a half-forgotten relic of old money tucked behind the polished, newer mansions. Kendrick kept his eyes low and movements sharp. Every inch of that grass was money, and every job meant one more dialysis session for his mama. Kendrick was 28, and already he felt time slipping through his calloused fingers. He had plans once. Still did, if dreams counted. KJ's Landscaping and Design was the name he'd sketched on a paper 5 years ago. He kept that sketch paper folded in the glove compartment of his van, his office, his bed, and his prison all in one. Parked behind a gas station just off Highway 278, it reeked of old takeout, lawn clippings, and desperation. Most of the residents in Willow Creek barely acknowledged him. Just another worker in a town where the help came and went. Sometimes they gave him a nod, more often a list of demands. But she, Miss Vivian Astor, was different. She watched him, always from the same window. Top floor. Curtain pulled just enough for a sliver of her pale face to peek through. She never came outside. Never spoke. But Kendrick could feel her gaze. It wasn't leering or judgmental. It felt curious. Like she was studying him. Yo, you know that old lady's watching you again? Braun, his friend and occasional coworker, chuckled while loading the weed whacker into Kendrick's van one morning. Swear she got binoculars or something. That house looks straight haunted, bruh. Kendrick shrugged, stealing a glance toward the window. She was watching again. Maybe she just bored, he muttered. Or lonely. Braun rolled his eyes. Or plotting your murder. I heard she hasn't left that house since, like, the 90s. Ain't nobody seen her up close since Clinton was in office. But Kendrick didn't laugh. There was something about Miss Astor's presence that didn't sit right, but also didn't scare him. Maybe it was the way she tracked his every movement with an intensity that felt personal. Maybe it was because she was the only person who ever truly saw him in this neighborhood. And she always watched until he finished. Every time. He remembered the first day he worked her lawn. Overgrown, half-dead shrubs. Ivy crawling over the wrought iron gate like it wanted to swallow the place whole. It was the only house on the block that hadn't been renovated or flipped. Still wore the bones of old Georgia wealth. Greek columns chipped at the edges, stone lions guarding the front steps, windows with cracked, stained glass that caught the sun in unsettling ways. He hadn't been paid that day. The old woman hadn't answered the door, but a note had been left on the porch. You did good work. Come again next week. I'll make it worth your while. So he returned. Week after week. Still no door answered, still no money. Until the fourth time. That morning, a small white envelope was taped to the gate. Inside, $200 in crisp bills. From then on, Kendrick treated her lawn like it was sacred ground. He sharpened his blades before every cut, trimmed her hedges like a sculptor. And every time, she watched from the window. Never blinking, never moving, just watching. It was weird, yeah? But Kendrick didn't question it. Not when the hospital bills were piling up. Not when the van leaked every time it rained. Not when his mother whispered in her sleep about not wanting to die in debt. She stares at me, Kendrick would later say, like I reminded her of someone, or maybe like she was measuring my worth. It was a Wednesday afternoon, just past 3, when Kendrick Johnson heard the sound that would change his life forever. A sharp, sudden thud, flesh against earth. A dry gasp. Then silence. He turned off his mower. At first, he thought maybe a tree branch had fallen. But then he saw her. Miss Vivian Astor, sprawled across her front lawn like a crumpled doll, her thin white nightgown stained green from the grass. Her silver hair was splayed around her head like a broken halo. And not one damn neighbor came out. Cars passed. A jogger on the sidewalk didn't even slow down. Kendrick didn't hesitate. He dropped everything, sprinted across the yard, and dropped to his knees beside her. Miss Vivian? Miss Astor, can you hear me? Her eyelids fluttered. Her breathing was shallow. Her hands, bird-boned and ice-cold, clutched at the air like she was reaching for something she couldn't name. I got you, Kendrick said softly, slipping his arms under her frail frame. She weighed next to nothing. Inside, the house smelled like old roses, mothballs, and untouched time. Dust clung to every surface like wallpaper. Portraits lined the halls, stern men in military uniforms, women in gowns from centuries past. Eyes that followed him, judged him. He laid her gently on the Victorian-style couch in the parlor. Her lips trembled. Don't call anyone, she whispered. Ma'am, you need a doctor. She shook her head, wheezing. No doctors, just water. Kendrick hesitated, then nodded. He found a glass in the dimly lit kitchen, crystal, expensive, and filled it from the tap. She sipped slowly, and color began returning to her cheeks. You shouldn't be alone, he said. She smiled faintly. Alone is all I've ever been. After making sure she could stand, Kendrick helped her to a high-back chair near the window, the same one she always watched from. She waved him away when he asked again about calling someone. Go now, she said gently. You've done enough. He left reluctantly, checking his phone. Missed calls from the nursing center. A voicemail reminding him payment was overdue again. By 9 p.m., Kendrick was back in his van, shirt damp from sweat, heart heavy from life. The memory of her trembling fingers stuck with him. Maybe it was guilt, or maybe just a sense of unfinished business, but he didn't sleep well. At 10:43 p.m., his phone rang. Unknown caller. He almost let it go. Almost. But something told him to answer. Her voice, faint and trembling. Kendrick, I'm scared. I don't want to be alone tonight. His stomach dropped. How'd you get my number? I've always had it, she whispered. He paused, creeped out, confused. But something in her voice, fragile, like the wind might carry it away, stopped him from hanging up. I'll be there, he said. When he arrived, the front door was open. A single lamp glowed in the upstairs hallway. The house felt different, warmer, somehow. Alive. The air hummed. Miss Vivian sat on the edge of her bed in a long silk nightgown, hands clasped tightly in her lap. Thank you for coming, she said softly. I just need someone near. I won't sleep otherwise. Kendrick pulled a chair beside her bed. Right here. I'll stay till morning. She gave him a small nod, her eyes fluttering closed. Sleep came slowly. The chair was stiff, and the ticking of an old grandfather clock filled the silence like a metronome of dread. He drifted in and out, half dreaming of golden rivers and whispers behind wallpaper. By sunrise, he was stiff, groggy, and sore. He rubbed his eyes, stood, and reached for his hoodie draped over the chair. It was heavy. He froze. In the front pocket, tucked neatly inside, was a bar of gold. Not plated. Not fake. Real. Dense. Pure. He stared at it like it might vanish. Before he could speak, Miss Vivian opened her eyes. She looked fresher, calmer, healthier. It's real, she said simply. Every night you sleep beside me, it doubles. Kendrick blinked, unsure if he was still dreaming. What? She sat up straighter. You may lie in the bed if the chair becomes too uncomfortable. I won't mind. I just need your warmth. That's all I ask. He stared at the gold, his pulse thumping in his ears. This was insane. Was she testing him? Was this some twisted joke? But the weight in his hand didn't lie. As he left the house, dazed and clutching the gold, the morning sun cut through the trees like revelation. He didn't say a word to anyone, just stared at the bar the whole ride back to his van. And the next night, he returned. In the morning, 2 bars. Kendrick Johnson returned the next night, but not for the gold. At least, that's what he told himself. He told himself he was doing a good thing. That Miss Vivian was old, lonely, and possibly slipping into the deep end of her mind. And if she wanted company, why not? A few hours of his time for peace of mind? That was charity, a kindness. But when he woke the next morning and found 2 bars of gold tucked into the lining of his coat, the story he told himself began to shift. By the 4th night, there were 4 bars. By the 6th, 6. Still, he didn't tell a soul. Not his mother. Not even himself. Not really. He was walking a tightrope between disbelief and need. Too scared to question the source. Too desperate to stop. One night, curiosity got the better of him. He brought a fake gold bar, one he bought off a shady pawn shop in Decatur. Looked identical to Miss Vivian's. Same size, same polish. He slipped it into his coat pocket and waited. In the morning, there were 7 bars. 6 were warm and dense. The 7th, the fake one, was cold and weightless. Kendrick ran every test he could Google from his prepaid phone. The vinegar drop, the magnet test, the water weight. Even found a guy who used a laser scanner and said, "Bro, this is the realest reel I've seen in a long time." He sold 1 bar. Quietly. No IDs, no questions. A discreet buyer from an underground precious metals dealer near Savannah took it off his hands for $30,000 cash. Kendrick nearly fainted when he walked out with a duffel bag full of rubber-banded bills. First stop? His mother's hospital. "We're paid up," he told the billing clerk, trying to keep his voice steady. "All of it?" she asked, stunned. "Every dime." He wept in the parking lot. Ugly tears, for the first time in years. That night, he returned to Miss Vivian's house and didn't hesitate. He laid down beside her, not touching, just near, and slept like a man who had nothing left to fear. That was when the transformation began. Within weeks, Kendrick had paid off every debt, bought his mama a brand new recliner, stocked her fridge with all the expensive health food she never thought they could afford. Then came the truck, a matte black Ram 1500 with chrome rims and speakers that made the doors shudder. Then came the smile, literally. He got his teeth fixed. Perfectly white, perfectly straight. People started noticing. So Kendrick upped his wardrobe too. Gucci, Off-White, a gold chain thick enough to tow a car. He still wore his beat-up lawn crew shirt when on the job, but the accessories told a different story. "I just mow lawns for rich people," he'd say with a shrug, whenever someone asked how he was doing so well. But the whispers followed. "Ain't no lawnmower wearing Gucci. Bet he's selling dope on the side. That boy got a sugar mama. Watch." He ignored it all. What mattered was the gold, the silence, and Miss Vivian. She had changed, too. Slightly. She looked softer, still pale and frail, but her voice was stronger, her eyes clearer. Some nights, she asked him to read to her. Old books, poetry, weathered pages she kept in her bedside drawer. He read with the same rhythm he'd once used to lull his mama to sleep back when she was too sick to speak. One evening, without warning, she reached over and began brushing his hair with her delicate fingers. "You remind me of someone I once loved," she said, smiling faintly. "But you're more alive." Kendrick stiffened slightly, unsure of how to respond. "You can sleep in the bed, if you like," she added. "You don't have to stay in the chair anymore." The bed was queen-sized, antique, carved oak. He nodded and laid down on top of the covers, fully clothed. She didn't move closer, just turned away, facing the window. That night, he got 8 bars. As the weeks passed, the rules emerged, subtle at first, then clearer. "Never miss a night," she said one evening, voice low and deliberate. "And never bring anyone else into the bed. Ever." Her tone left no room for negotiation. Kendrick nodded, playing it cool. "Of course. It's just us." But deep inside, somewhere between the thrill of gold and the fear of the unknown, he began to feel the truth settle in his bones. This wasn't just a gift. It was a contract. And the price of breaking it? He didn't even want to imagine. Success, it turned out, was just as exhausting as struggle. Kendrick Johnson was rich now. Not tech bro rich. Not, "I got lucky with crypto" rich. This was generational, untraceable, liquid gold rich. He kept the gold hidden in different places. A stash buried in a locked cooler beneath the floorboards of his van. Another wrapped in old sweatshirts in a duffel bag behind his mama's house. A third inside a toolbox bolted shut in the trunk of his new Benz. But with every night he spent next to Miss Vivian Astor, the bars multiplied. They were almost alive, always warm, always fresh. Like they hadn't come from a mine, but a womb. And Kendrick? He kept getting bolder. He launched his dream. Carter Landscaping Empire, complete with a fancy website, a fleet of trucks with his name plastered across them, and a full-time crew. His first hire was Braun, the same dude who used to laugh at Miss Vivian's house and call it haunted. Now Braun ran operations. "I don't know how you did it, bro," he said one afternoon while loading mulch into the new company trailer. "But I gotta admit, you're a whole damn boss now." Kendrick just grinned. "Hard work, man. That's all it is." But hard work wasn't what kept the money flowing. It was obedience. Every night, without fail, Kendrick showed up to Miss Vivian's mansion. Her presence had shifted over time, less fragile, more alert. Sometimes she talked about her past in cryptic fragments, about war, love, betrayal, and something called the arrangement. But mostly, they just shared space. He read to her. She watched him sleep. The bed stayed cold on her side, but the gold never stopped coming. Until he broke the rule. It started at a downtown club. Some real estate mogul had invited him to a private party after closing a landscaping contract for his hotel chain. The place was loud, smoke-filled, bodies swaying like they were underwater. Kendrick wasn't even trying to wild out. But then she found him. Camila. Half Dominican, half trouble. A laugh that curled at the edges. Eyes like honey in sunlight. They talked for hours. She said something about energy. He said something about destiny. Then it was 3 a.m. and they were tangled in her high-rise condo sheets, the city lights blinking like warning signs through the blinds. He didn't even remember falling asleep. When he jolted awake, his phone was dead. The sun was already up. He raced home, broke every speed limit on the way, heart pounding like a ticking clock. Back at his van, he rushed to check his duffel bag. Half the gold gone. Not missing, melted. It had puddled into a warped, sticky mess at the bottom of the bag. Thick, viscous, like it had cried itself out of existence. Panicked, he rushed to the mansion. Miss Vivian sat in her usual chair, but something in her was off. Her skin had paled to chalk. Her eyes were sunken, hands trembling violently. "You broke the rule," she hissed, voice thin and sharp like a blade dragged over bone. "I'm sorry," Kendrick stammered. "I didn't mean to. I've kept the curse at bay for 70 years, she snapped, eyes glowing with something almost inhuman. "I feed the balance. You disturb the balance, and it feeds on you. Don't ever do that again." Kendrick backed away slowly. I can't do this. I need to stop." "Try," she said, "and you'll learn what true hunger feels like." He left, shaken, determined to walk away. That night, he didn't return. And the gold? It retaliated. The next morning, another stash had melted, this time inside the floor of his van, searing a hole into the wood. Gold smoke. Burned lining. The scent of rot. He started dreaming. Violent, surreal dreams. Gold crawling up his legs like vines. Gold dripping from the ceiling, seeping into his ears. Gold forcing itself into his mouth, hot and sticky, choking him. He woke up gasping for air, clutching his throat, his tongue tasting like metal. He skipped another night. And another pile vanished. The balance was unraveling. And Kendrick, for the first time since he found that first gold bar, felt broke again. Not in his pockets, but in his spirit. Something had latched onto him the night he broke the rule. Something old, hungry, and possessive. And the worst part? He could feel it watching him, even when he was alone. Kendrick Johnson was running out of time and options. The gold was evaporating faster than he could keep up. Miss Vivian had stopped speaking to him except in cryptic, icy sentences. She hadn't smiled in days. Her house, once dim and still, now pulsed with a strange tension, like it was waiting. So Kendrick did what desperate men do. He made a deal with himself. Just one more night. One more hit. Then he'd be free. He drove to the south side and picked up Reggie, his wild cousin who'd been in and out of trouble since they were kids. Reggie, who'd once flipped a stolen lawnmower for $200 and thought it made him an entrepreneur. Reggie, who'd always believed Kendrick was hiding something. "You finally ready to tell me where the money come from?" Reggie asked as they rolled through the gates of the Astor Mansion, headlights casting eerie shadows across the cracked marble lions flanking the driveway. Kendrick hesitated. "You won't believe me. I didn't believe in jail either, but here we are." Kendrick parked, engine ticking in the silence. "You don't ask questions tonight. You just do what I say." Reggie glanced at the house, skeptical. "This the haunted old witch place?" "No," Kendrick said. "I'm surviving." Inside, the air was heavy and sweet, like rotting roses. Miss Vivian sat upright in her favorite chair, dressed in a deep red velvet robe. Her hair was brushed, her lips faintly tinted. She hadn't looked this composed in weeks. Kendrick cleared his throat. "This is Reggie. He's family." Vivian turned to Reggie slowly, her gaze cool and unreadable. "Family," she echoed. "Very good." Reggie gave her a nod, half mocking. "You must be the queen of the gold mine." She didn't laugh. She just stared. That night, they lay on either side of her bed. Kendrick in the usual chair, Reggie on a makeshift mattress. The tension was thick. Kendrick's palms sweated. He watched the clock tick into the early hours, then drifted into a half-sleep, nightmares flickering behind his eyes, visions of golden veins and silent screams. When he woke, the sun was bleeding through the curtains. Reggie's blanket was still there. His sneakers, his watch, his chain, scattered neatly like he'd taken them off. But Reggie? Gone. Kendrick stumbled out of the room. "Reggie," he called, panic slicing his throat. "Yo, Reg." Then he saw it. On the living room couch, right where Reggie had slumped the night before, sat a solid gold statue. Not just any statue. Reggie, frozen in terror, mouth agape, eyes wide, shimmering in horror. His arms mid-motion, like he'd tried to scream or shield himself. Kendrick dropped to his knees. "Oh my God, Reggie." He reached out, hands trembling, touched the surface. It was warm, smooth, heavy, real. Behind him, he heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Miss Vivian. But not the Miss Vivian he'd left hours ago. This woman was younger. Her skin, no longer translucent, glowed with a fresh hue. Her hair had darkened to a chestnut brown. Her back straightened. Her lips full. She looked no older than 40. She moved gracefully, her robe trailing behind her like smoke. "You brought me a gift," she whispered. Kendrick stood, heart jackhammering. What the hell is this? "Where's Reggie?" She smiled, gently, almost lovingly. "He is here. You said the gold just comes." "I said it doubles when you sleep beside me," she said, tilting her head. "But true gold that sustains, it has to be earned." Kendrick shook his head. "You didn't tell me. I told you never to bring anyone else into the bed." He backed away, stumbling over Reggie's sneakers. "You used me. What are you?" Her voice was a hush now, like wind over a grave. "The gold comes from life. And I'm still hungry." Kendrick ran. He didn't grab his duffel bags. Didn't look back at Reggie's golden face. He just bolted down the hallway, through the front door, and into the blinding daylight, his mind screaming, heart cracking. Because now he knew the truth. This wasn't magic. This wasn't luck. This was sacrifice. And Kendrick Johnson was the delivery boy for something ancient. Something starving. Kendrick Johnson hit the gas so hard, his tires spit gravel across the road like bullets. He didn't know where he was going. He just needed to go. His cousin Reggie was a statue, frozen in gold. Miss Vivian had fed on him like some ancient succubus with velvet sheets and satin lies. Kendrick didn't stop driving until the sun was high and the mansion was nothing but a memory in his rearview mirror. He checked into a rundown motel on the outskirts of town. Peeling wallpaper. Cigarettes burn on the carpet. The air conditioner coughed and wheezed like it was dying. He paced the room, heart racing, eyes bloodshot. Then he did what panic told him to do. He burned the gold. He took the bars he'd hidden in his trunk, stacked them in the motel bathtub, poured lighter fluid over them, and lit a match. The flames burst up. He watched with satisfaction as the fire curled around the edges, blackening them. But when the fire died down, the gold was still there, shining, perfect, multiplying. By morning, there were twice as many bars. He screamed, threw them out the window, into the trash, down the sewer. Didn't matter. They came back. In his closet, in the fridge, in the shape of the toilet seat. The gold followed. So Kendrick ran again. Sold the truck. Sold the designer clothes. Sold the name he'd built, Carter Landscaping Empire, for scraps. He checked into another motel, this time under a fake name. Didn't sleep. Couldn't sleep. Because every time he closed his eyes, he saw gold crawling across the walls, slithering like vines. Oozing from the air vents. Climbing into his ears, his mouth, his brain. He jabbed himself awake with coffee and cheap energy pills. Days passed. Maybe weeks. The mirror showed a ghost with cracked lips and trembling hands. He whispered to himself in the dark. The gold needs rest to multiply. But I stopped resting. I stopped being human. One night, the motel light above him made a weird sound and popped. Gold dust rained from the ceiling. The air smelled like melted coins and death. He knew then it wouldn't stop. Not until he stopped it. He went back. The mansion looked different. The iron gates had polished themselves. The windows glowed with warm yellow light. The roses in the garden were blooming gold-tipped petals, swaying without wind. The house was alive. He pushed open the door. It didn't creak this time. Miss Vivian stood at the top of the stairs, now no older than 30. Hair thick and dark, skin radiant. She wore a silk robe tied loosely at the waist, revealing just enough to send shivers through him. "Kendrick," she said, voice like honey dripping into poison. "You came home." He swallowed hard. "I'm ending this." She tilted her head, amused. "No, sweetheart. You're fulfilling it." He stepped into her room one last time. The place glowed gold. Literally. The floor shimmered. The sheets had threads of bullion. Bars of gold were piled at the foot of the bed like trophies. She lay back against the pillows, legs crossed, smiling. "Lie with me one last time," she purred. "Or lose your body, your soul, and your mama." Kendrick froze. His mama. He hadn't spoken to her in weeks. Hadn't told her where he was. Hadn't checked on her. "Where is she?" he demanded, stepping forward. Vivian just smiled wider. "Why don't you ask her?" From the gold pile, a voice echoed, faint, broken. "Kenny, baby, help me." His mother's voice. Coming from the gold. The air went cold. The walls trembled. Lights flickered overhead, buzzing like wasps. Kendrick's chest heaved. Sweat poured down his face. His legs locked. He screamed and jumped into the bed. Miss Vivian's hands wrapped around him instantly, pulling him into the silk and the shadows and the soundless place between time. The room exploded in golden light. Then, silence. A single gold coin rolled off the edge of the bed and hit the floor with a soft clink. The house dimmed. The flowers outside wilted. The gold lost its shine. All that remained was stillness. It was 20 days before anyone thought to check the mansion. The neighbors said the house had been too quiet. No music. No strange lights. No smell of cigars and champagne drifting on the breeze. Just stillness. The police broke through the front door just after dawn. The heavywood groaned as if protesting their presence. Inside, the air was cool, clean, like the home had scrubbed itself spotless in preparation. No sign of Kendrick Johnson. No blood. No body. Just dust on the floor, a few fresh footprints, and gold flakes scattered delicately across the bedsheets, like a fairy tale gone terribly wrong. Detective Marshall, a veteran with salt and pepper hair and nerves of steel, swept his flashlight across the room. He paused at the bed. "Looks like somebody just got up," he muttered, brushing his fingers over the golden dust. It shimmered under his touch. Another officer called from the hallway. "Place is clean. Too clean. No dishes. No trash. No personal belongings. Like someone packed up and vanished." "No one packed," Marshall said, eyes locked on the bed. "Someone was taken." The scent of roses hung faint in the air. Sweet, heavy, almost seductive. They left the house with more questions than answers. Outside, sprinklers hissed softly across the emerald green lawn. The morning sun glinted off the dewdrops like tiny diamonds. Not a leaf out of place. Down by the edge of the driveway, a young man trimmed the hedges with a brand new pair of clippers. His skin was smooth, golden brown, his arms muscular from real labor. Maybe 22, 23. His name tag read Luis. Marshall approached him. "Hey son, you work here?" Luis looked up, surprised but polite. "Yes, sir. Started this week." "Who hired you?" the detective asked. Luis wiped sweat from his brow with a towel hanging from his belt. "Lady inside. Said she needed someone strong to keep her company at night. Just for a few nights." He smiled. One of those youthful, trusting smiles. "She even promised I'd be rich." Marshall blinked. "And did she give you anything yet?" Luis nodded toward the porch. Sitting just inside the door, nestled on a velvet cloth, was a single gold coin. It gleamed in the sunlight, still warm. "You been inside?" Marshall asked, cautious. Luis shook his head. "Not yet. She said tonight would be my first." "Tonight?" "Yeah." Luis chuckled nervously. "Told me to get some rest before sunset. Said it'd be a long one." Marshall turned slowly, scanning the mansion again. The windows reflected the sun, mostly blank, but one window upstairs was not. Behind the sheer curtain, a silhouette stood. Her. Miss Vivian. Younger now, maybe 25 at most. Skin smooth, hair cascading down her shoulders like ink. She watched them silently from the master bedroom window, expression unreadable, mouth curled in the faintest of smiles. She didn't wave. She didn't blink. Just watched. The curtain drifted closed. Luis kept trimming, humming a song that sounded like something his grandmother might have sung. Innocent. Hopeful. Marshall felt the hairs on his neck rise. As they walked back to the patrol car, his partner whispered, We pulling him out of there? Marshall looked back at the house, at the coin, at the window. Then he whispered, "We're too late." That night, the camera would have caught it all, if there'd been one. Luis entering the mansion with his work shirt still damp from sweat. The door creaking closed behind him. The golden glow returning to the windows, faint at first, then pulsing like a heartbeat. And upstairs, on the nightstand next to the bed, a fresh gold bar, newly forged, still steaming slightly in the moonlight. Miss Vivian lay in bed, propped against silk pillows. She turned her head slowly toward the open door, lips parting in a whisper. "Come keep me company, sweetheart."